In my previous video, I covered a segment on CNN that featured Stephen A. Smith and how he basically exposed the Democratic Party for basically just taking black people for granted, which is definitely 1000% true. And he has that same sentiment here in this other sit down segment on CNN, only this time he is advocated or has advocated more so for all black people to vote for the GOP, also known as the Republican Party. So let's see what he has to say here.
Stephen A. said that every black person in America should vote Republican for at least one election. Stephen A. Smith is joining me now. Stephen, who are you trying to send a message to? Republicans, Democrats, African Americans, all of the above?
I'd go with all of the above. That sounds about right, but specifically the Democratic Party from the standpoint that I definitely believe that the black vote has been taken for granted. And primarily the black community is at fault, in my estimation, in that regard, simply because on one hand, we're giving one party our vote because they've successfully gone about the business of convincing our community that the other party, the Republican Party, is completely against the interest of the black community. And as a result, we've been very transparent in our support. We've bought it hook, line, and sinker. We look at the Republican Party. I'm not talking about every single one of us, of course, but vast majority of black Americans look at the Republican Party as the enemy. We look at the Democratic Party, even tacitly, as our support base. And as a result, we are very transparent in our support for them. So because of it, they have a license to take us for granted. The Republican Party has a license to summarily dismiss us because they believe they'll never get our vote anyway. And then we end up finding ourselves devoid of any kind of representation whatsoever because nobody is really competing to garner our vote and our support. So I said what I said because I wanted folks in my community to stand up and recognize that if you go to a house or you go buy a car or whatever the case may be, you don't just see something you want and say, I want that. Tell me what the price is and I'll pay for it. Somebody has to flatter you in order to garner your dollars and your support. I think the same should apply to politicians who represent us.
Let me put this in the
All excellent points. And I do definitely agree that as a collective, we are definitely at fault when it comes to us being duped by the Democratic Party and continuously drinking from that Kool-Aid. This notion that all this time Democrats have been our benefactors and our quote unquote saviors, whereas the Republican Party has been all out against black people and they're anti black and they couldn't care less about us, our issues, nor even our plight, which is what we believe, most of us. But again, history shows that it was actually the Democratic Party that has been against our people from the very beginning in regards to things like racist acts in the form of the Ku Klux Klan and how they've terrorized black people for years and chasing us down, killing, lynching us, burning crosses on our front yard, things like that. And how, in regards to slavery, that it was actually the Democrats themselves who were against abolishing slavery because of how it would impact the Union and also how it would take away their means to make money because the slaves at that time were very high commodity. All right, so they couldn't have that. That's why Republicans were the party for African Americans in the very beginning because it was founded for and by us. It was only until around the 1930s with the New Deal that a majority of our people became wholehearted members of the Democratic Party and have been voting for that party ever since. Right? And another interesting um, piece of information is that during the 1960s, with the whole civil rights movement, in regards to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, you actually had more Republicans who were in favor of that law than Democrats, right? But they don't tell you that information. Why? Because that would actually have us question our loyalty to these people, man, to this party. I was actually, not only question it, but in a way, okay, make us actually want to hear what the other side has to say in regards to these truths about our so-called allies and so-called friends, right? And it's kind of like it's kind of like that song back in the day by the group Undisputed Truth called "Smiling Faces," because they definitely pointed out, and that's a perfect analogy in regards to like what you're buying a house, buying a car, things of that nature, right? You can't just automatically just buy it. They have to flatter you, right? They have to make you want it. And in regards to the notion of the smiling faces, is that yeah, they can smile right in your face, and they'll make you believe that what they have is beneficial for you, but but in the long run, it's going to keep you pretty much poor in poverty, right? And continuously keep having these same issues over and over and over again, to the point where every election year they keep you at those polls continuously voting for them, and all you have to do is to simply keep doing that same thing over and over again, keep flattering you, keep giving you tokens, right? Tangibles. That's the thing, man. It's that's why you shouldn't. That's why you don't have to teach an old dog new tricks. Because why would you need a new trick when the one you've been using all these years has always worked, right? So these are definitely great points that Stephen A. hit on.
Context of 2016, because I think
Sure.
given the monolithic nature of the African American vote, a lot of Republicans don't even make the ask. Rand Paul
Right.
is making the ask. Is there anything that he can say?
Another point I wanted to bring up too before we continue is that back in the day, over 50 years ago, well-known activist and hero to the black community, Malcolm X, um, put out a quote where he basically stated that if you were Democrat, or you at least voted Democrat, not only were you a political chump, but that you were a traitor to your race. And that's definitely, I mean, that is so true in regards to this example of well-known Democrat Margaret Sanger and the unholy alliance that she had with the pastors and preachers, particularly black pastors and preachers, in regards to utilizing the number one killer of black people, more so than police brutality of unarmed black men getting shot by the cops, and black on black crime with innocent black men, women, children, and even little toddlers, little babies getting killed randomly by gun violence. And that number one killer is abortion. And for whatever reason, that doesn't get brought up a lot. And for the most part, it gets ignored. Because I wonder why.
That you think can change this equation?
Well, first of all, he can highlight some of the inconsistencies and discrepancies the opposing party might be throwing in our direction, things that we may not know. That's number one. Number two, one of the things that you need to do as a Republican, particularly if you're running for the presidency, you have to surround yourself with a bunch of folks that look like us and not just you, that look like Hispanics and not just you.
Exactly. So in other words, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. All right. Yeah, it's one thing to expose the lies that the other party has been telling us for all these years. But on the other side, it's up to you now to show us what you have. Everything you show us what you can put on the table, right? What point by point, what plans do you have, if any, and what can be done to alleviate the problems within our communities. So that way we don't keep going through all these things to the degree that we're going through, right? And of course, the same way you have Democrats who surround themselves with black people, I do believe that, yes, Republicans should definitely do that more often as well, like Donald Trump has done, especially with famous black celebrities, right? Among other things, even with him appearing in a black church, right? Things of that nature. Even though I believe that, even though it's good that you look at both sides in regards to the Democratic and Republican Party, the pros, the cons, what's beneficial for us, what is deleterious to us. We pick, choose, and decipher, and then we go with the better one, right? The better party. Even though that's a good thing to do, logically, I believe that the best route, politically wise, would be for us to have our own party where we go independent. So that way, we don't want to have to just automatically just vote for someone on either side without pretty much kind of like putting the emphasis on them to say, okay, if you want our votes, here's when I want to see what you're about. I want to see what your policies are like and how they can benefit us, and so on and so forth. That's the way, honestly, it should be done from the political sphere. But overall, Stephen A. pretty much, again, touched on pretty much what needed to be touched on in regards to how politically the one party that we've been loyal to for all these years have been pretty much been screwing us all these years, and that the other side could offer some changes, much needed changes to help turn things around within the black community. So I gotta give my hats off to Stephen A on that one. But anyway, that's a wrap. I'm out. Peace.